Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Loan Officer Playbook, the podcast where we talk about real insights and strategies in loan origination. Today I'm joined with Todd Feager. Todd is the co founder of Haven Home Equity, a subsidiary of Top Flight Financial. Welcome, Todd.
Thanks, Michael. Good to see you again.
Amazing. Todd, when we were chatting in the pre-interview before this, I was surprised to learn that you are now a self-proclaimed but also a self-accomplished developer.
I don't know if I'm ready for that title by any means. My developer on staff would probably laugh here and there.
Yeah,
But
you're an honorary developer.
yeah, I love the software space. I just have never learned how to write code. So, but we've spent the last 6 or 7 years really building a lot of in one really primary application internally. And so I've had the chance to learn a lot about, what goes into building software, and it's been a lot of fun, and I just enjoy it. I like the ability to create, custom solutions that can help create efficiencies, for our team. And so I've been doing that, and really just I've been a lot of the ideas, and then my developer would go and kind of bring it to life, and he's awesome. But when you and I spoke, I kind of mentioned that, there's so much technology now with AI and everything that I got hooked on a couple of different tools that allow someone like me with a lot of ideas, but not the coding background to bring some things to life. So we're working on some really cool stuff, and I'm not getting a lot of sleep, but it's it's a blessing and a curse. But but I'm really enjoying it, and it's exciting because I think we're going to be able to do just so much more. Even my developer, being able to leverage tools like this is going to be they're just, you get it, but the efficiencies and the capacity that brings to development is insane. So we're pumped.
Yeah, I like how you described it as getting hooked on a couple of tools. It really does feel like you're hooked on. You're addicted, and you're like, oh my god, I can't wait to get home to just prompt Lovable and just show this. I think we're in a certainly interesting time in not only the lending industry, but in the corporate world as a whole, where executives can now prompt AI as they're prompting humans, because you're prompting your developer all the time, and now you don't need to have that sort of like 5-day wait period for them to go build something and then come back, you give feedback. Now you can just develop a lot faster.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think one of the things that I don't hear a lot of people talk about, because the buzz is always like, what jobs is it going to replace? And I try to think about it a little differently, like, how does it change like existing roles? And it was interesting, my developer Dave and I, we had a conversation the other day, and coming from experience now, because I'm weeks and weeks into this, and what I'm finding is because I don't understand code, in terms of, even the responses I get sometimes with errors and things like that, I don't know how to talk to it. So I find myself, even with fantastic tools like this, not really knowing how to ask it the right way, to prompt it the right way to do what I want. So, we had a great talk, and it was, he's been doing this for decades, and he's a wizard. And I was like, man, if you were doing what I'm doing, because you would know how to speak to it and what to ask and what to double check, you would have done what I've done probably 10 times as fast. And so I see that, like, the future of, like, your really talented developers are going to be the ones that are willing to kind of pivot a little bit and embrace the technology and really leverage their understanding of code, and those things are going to be the ones that just thrive, because their bandwidth is going to just go through the roof.
Yeah. I mean, you're in the consumer direct space, and I would argue, consumer direct arguably needs a lot more tech than non-consumer direct, if you will, just because the number of inputs that you're working with is a lot more than, sort of like B2B sort of thing. What are some of the positioning things that you have done at Haven Home Equity to sort of like position you as a tech forward consumer direct lender?
I mean, in terms of action items, I think first and foremost, it was just the realization that, years ago, 6, 7 years ago, that, even though we're not big, we probably need to start thinking about building some of our own tools. And so I think that was step one, like that really not knowing where it was going to go. But then as you started to build and connect, and every team, regardless really of industry, but in mortgage, even in consumer direct, you just have different workflows, and you have different tech stack and different things. And I think what we've seen over the years is really what you want to try and accomplish for the loan officer, the processor, everybody involved, is this. You don't want to have them going in and out of a bunch of systems. You don't want to have it completely disconnected. And the more you can bring it together and try to integrate and then control, the overall user experience, the user interface, if you will, I just think it brings so much more synergy to the whole process. From, we've got this kind of concept we use with how we're thinking about tech and AI, and it's kind of these three categories of kind of the contact, the connect phase, more like sales and prospecting. What can we do to make the average salesperson just more efficient, to connect with leads and get more engagement? And then you've got the conversion phase, where how do we help them convert better when they get an opportunity? How can we help them articulate like complex scenarios and present it in a really digestible way? We think a little bit and we talk a little bit different than most mortgage lenders, so that's been a real challenge for us over the years, is getting our team to not just identify the opportunity, but then be able to simplify it for the customer and help them see like the type of structure we're recommending and why it makes sense. So like the connect, the contact, convert phase, and then the close. Like if you get the deal in, what are some tools we can do to help our operations team more than anybody move it faster, more efficiently, less error, less back and forth, less touch points for the borrowers and the underwriters, and get them close. So I kind of look at the business and and anything really we're doing with tech, AI especially, as kind of fallen in just typically to one of those categories. And there's some other reporting and things like that, but those are the big three. And it's helped us, I think, kind of scope out like what, it's great to throw around the concept, and AI is so exciting because everybody knows that there's so much that it's can do, and we're probably not even in the end of the first inning, but really taking the time, and it took us a minute to figure out how does it fit in our business, and how are we going to leverage it to get the biggest bang for our buck, and really with a core principle of, we're not trying, to replace people. We're trying to help them do a lot more than what they can do, and take out the parts of the jobs that they probably don't enjoy doing anyway.
Yeah.
And then, we if we can do that, we save on labor because we can not have to hire as many people to do the same thing. And so I think that's really the picture we're trying to paint for our team, is that's our intention. That's how we're going to build this. That's how we're going to grow, and they're excited about it. So it's cool to actually, when you build some of these things and you get to bring them into production, to see an impact and see what it's doing, and it's really cool. So I just enjoy that part of my job.
Yeah. Speaking of empowering your team, and this is not to prop you up, but I think you've built one of the most specialized teams in the industry. Like your team is really, really well competent. And I can't help but notice behind you, you have some of the awards, best places to work. Could you maybe speak a little bit to what are some of the niche things that you have done, and your niche approach to your niche?
Yeah, so I guess I'll give you kind of a two-part answer to that. In terms of the culture and the awards and things like that, that's kind of, and it is anybody that does, that's in mortgage or runs a team, I think, in any industry that's together, especially if you're in a location like we are, most of our people are here in Pittsburgh. I think you just got to have really intentional leadership that is really, serious about maintaining a good culture. And so gosh, I've made a lot of mistakes over the years, but I think one of the things that's just always, I'm lucky, I've got a great business partner, and my partner Dave Bray, and we're always pretty much aligned. There's never been a disagreement. People, I think, see that at the top, and even when we maybe do something that they don't agree with, they know that, we've got really good intentions, and we're in here working really hard alongside them. We're not just barking orders, we're in the business like all day, every day, and I think that's important from a leadership standpoint. So we've been intentional. We have a high bar for what it takes to get in and stay into our system and to be a part of this thing. And I think when you do those things and you just put a lot of really cool people in a location together that are motivated, hungry A players, enjoy the solutions we provide to customers, like helping people, it just brings awesome energy. And so that's kind of just like core level philosophy, I think, of how we got here. And then we built out a beautiful space about 5 years ago that's not your typical average mortgage office, that just feels alive, and I think that's helped. And then we train a lot of our talent from outside the industry. We just really look for like high caliber people that have some attributes that we think we can teach you the business, but I can't give you drive and that fire in the belly and that solution driven mindset and all the things that you need, I think, just to be successful in life. But those are kind of the drivers behind, like, I think, why we've had success. And even when we stubbed our toe, just reminding ourselves of that and getting back on track has been kind of true north for us. So and then I've always, in the consumer direct space, in mortgage in general, there's a lot of versions, this, of what consumer direct means.
Yeah.
So I think that's unfortunate. A lot of people just put us all in a box, and the industry gets so divided. But we leaned in on this kind of concept, if you will, like be something to somebody, not everything to everybody. We're not ever going to try to be this gigantic, public, traded like lender. We'll get bigger, but there's so many deals out there, and we want to be the expert and the specialists for a certain type of people. And I think when you do that and you build an entire team, tech stack, workflow around it, it just hits different with someone that needs your solution. So, for example, all we do and all we've done in low rate environments, high rate environments, it doesn't matter, is just focus on existing homeowners with equity and debt.
Yeah.
And we've seen honestly, and there's some fantastic loan officers and companies and teams out there that understand what I'm saying, but collectively, we saw that as an opportunity, I think, in mortgage, where not the majority that we would butt up against probably just weren't having the right conversation.
Yeah.
They were so programmed to be thinking and talking about rates and closing costs, and and it's one thing when you're dealing with purchases and rate and term refinances, but when you're talking about debt restructure, as we like to call it, it's a more holistic, it's the whole financial picture.
Yeah.
And we've got this dynamic in our country where it's a ton of equity, record high debt, extremely long mortgage terms. Most people go back on 30-year mortgages left and right, and they never get anywhere. So that's really that's where we kind of carved out, let's lean into that. We can give people better advice than most. We can show them solutions, kind of challenge the status quo, I think, a little bit. So while other lenders are just focusing on maybe what's your mortgage rate, can I beat it, we're talking to them and helping our homeowners understand where's the pain coming from. Well, it's really your blended debt rate that's causing the cash flow problem.
Yeah.
There's a lot of homeowners out there with fantastic mortgage rates, high DTIs, and a lot of bad debt, and they can't sleep at night, and they got a lot of equity. And so what they need is almost like permission, if you will, and an advisor, which is, I think, more of what we like to call our, not loan officers, loan advisors, of just show them a path. And it's really lost on so many people that if you just look at things, get the traditional way of thinking out of the way and say, the combination, we call it the trifecta, Dale Vermillion's kind of coined this, and I love it, is we try to help our homeowners get cash out, we try to help them lower their overall payments, improve their cash flow, and then use some of that savings to attack the term.
Yeah.
And if you can start to use, if, you know, you start to free up that little extra cash flow and combat these 30-year longer term mortgages, all of a sudden you start cutting into cost into the mortgage. You start cutting in technically, you know, which is essentially interest, and you know the 30-year amortized rate and all those things start to mean a lot less.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's been really fun. I'm really passionate about that because I see it as a problem, and we experience it all the time. We have seasoned LOs that sometimes reach out to us that are talented, but it's hard to kind of crack that if you've been doing it and thinking about the business a certain way for a long time. And so, but yeah, that's our whole team is kind of built and bought into that, and it's really. It just hits different with our customers, and I think it helps us win. I know it helps us win a lot of the business we win. Not because we're always the best terms, just because we're giving, I think, stronger advice and setting people up for better long-term financial success.
Yeah. It's hard to think of lending as, you know, when I think of lending, it's mostly around, hey, you're going to give me a loan and I'm going to give you some sort of interest. Like you're taking money out of my pocket because I'm paying you interest all the time. And your business, it's kind of like you're giving them money back. Like you're helping them make better financial decisions, give them money back. And I think what most people don't understand is your mortgage rate is not only dependent on your mortgage, like your entire debt. So you guys not only have to be experts in, you know, the mortgage industry, but also all forms of debt, you know, helping them sort of like be consultants pretty much on their personal financial assistant, if you will. And that just requires like a really close sort of relationship that you need to have with the customers, of like more of a longer term thinking. And I know you say you guys are specialists, but I really feel like the home equity debt consolidation side of things, it's also quite broad. It's really, really broad. Yeah. It's
there's more people out there that need these types of solutions than we can handle, you know, so that's why we're just comfortable leaning into that. And you know, and some of my, you know, consumer direct friends want to kill me when I say it, but you know, the reality is, and this is, you know, in purchase business, you know, if you've got that strong local lender / realtor combination, I mean, you know, it's hard to beat that. You know, if you're the loan officer in a consumer direct shop that's halfway across the country, you know, and I get it, the location doesn't matter as much anymore. Most people aren't meeting in person, but I've always kind of looked at that where, you know, I don't know if I want to compete with that. And I just felt like this is an area where it's a different ballgame when you start talking about helping people leverage their equity in the most strategic way. You know, it's not as time sensitive with deadlines and all the things. It's more of a true service where you're really, you know, kind of taking a financial advisor type of approach. That's that if you're going to do, I think from a leadership standpoint, you got to really get intentional about making sure your people believe in that and understand it. That's been, if I knew what I knew now, I would have done things differently, trying to get our staff and our loan officers especially to really see, like, you know, and putting them through, you know, different things just to kind of get their buy-in, because you can't have, sometimes you'll get loan officers, it's like, you know, just tell me what to do, and you know, here's my script, and this isn't a script. You gotta understand it, you gotta believe it, you gotta see the value, and when you do that, what we see is our people it clicks and they get passionate about it, and then that shines through, whether you're in person or over the phone. Like they're telling a different story, giving people advice that they're not typically getting, asking questions they're not getting asked, and it really builds a stronger, I think, relationship, and builds more trust with the consumer. So that's what we try to lean into really hard.
And I think your decision right now, it all comes from 20 plus years of experience in the industry. And you mentioned, you know, you would have done things differently. Have you always sort of like had this mindset of, you know, focusing on one area and which area to focus on, or when did you have that initiative? At what point in your career, if you can connect the dots in your career, it's like, hey, when was the inflection point? When did the light bulb go off?
Yeah. I started in the industry, and just between like around 2001, late 2000 actually, right after I graduated high school, and I was in a consumer direct, like live transfer, pretty much just refinance, subprime days though, like all, just subprime loans. We're using rate sheets, and there was really no AUS, and the tech was not there, so
Wild West. Yeah.
it was mostly all subprime deals, and so it started there. So that certainly kind of shaped me a little bit, and even back then we were trying to think different about giving people advice and solutions, and I had some really good coaches and trainers back then, and I got a chance. I haven't worked at many places. I did that. I opened, then I quickly, 3 years into the industry, I decided I wanted to open my own branch for a company that quickly went out of business during the subprime crisis. And it was, I didn't even really know what I was sharp, but I didn't know I didn't know enough probably to take that leap, but I did it. And it was kind of baptism by fire, and I figured a lot of stuff out. And so I look back, and I think that was a pivotal point, is just being willing to bet on myself. And it kind of forced me to get myself in some uncomfortable situations. And I think when you don't have a lot of money, and you're trying to come up in this business, regardless of what channel you're in, you're trying to figure out, I think, your identity, and like, what story do I want to tell? Like, who do I want to help? And some choose the path of I'm a mortgage guy, and I do it all, and mine felt, I just liked the idea. I remember going through an exercise with a good friend of mine back then who was in the business, and it was kind of, we got on this topic about specialty services. It was always like, I don't know, you just feel more confident when you know the person, the company that's helping you with whatever that thing is, or the restaurant that specializes in that type of food. I don't know, it seems to build, it just gives you more confidence, and most of the time you end up getting a better experience, or at least the experience you're looking for. And would hope, and so that was really, I think, early, late 2000s, and then I got a chance to go work for a consumer direct that was more refi focused, but all over the credit spectrum, rate term, and in consumer direct, it was, I really think there's an opportunity here where the most underserved homeowner is some of the lower FICO stuff that happens as a result, really, of just getting extended, or maybe missing, they're running up their utilization rates, or life happens, stuff gets in the way, and we just would see so many deals that the credit score wasn't really the best reflection, where I knew, gosh, this person's been making their mortgage payment on time for years. They're in a pinch. If they got the equity, I could solve this problem for them and put them and save them hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars a month. If they've been making the payment so far, they're probably going to be able to keep making it and be in an even better position. But traditional way of thinking says, well, no, you're a 540 credit score, we can't help you. So those were moments, and then that was 9+ years ago. That was kind of the pivotal point where I didn't have the control to make those decisions on the strategic vision of the business that I was in prior to joining Top Flight and now Haven Home Equity, and so that was that. But yeah, so it's kind of been a build up. To answer your question, I think throughout my career, I haven't deterred too far from the path. When we joined Tim and Tracy Bays and Matt Cornett with the Top Flight team, we had that type of freedom. And my partner Dave and I, again, we think a lot alike, and so that's been just an awesome part of the journey, is being able to lean in on the part, kind of go at the business and create a business that we always wanted to create. And that's really what we just continue to do and try to refine.
Yeah, and you still continue to be on that journey today with what you were mentioning about someone might have a 540 credit score, but it's really not about their actual credit score. It's like the nuance of the situation that they're in. And so you saw that opportunity, if you will, in the market and say, hey, but you also saw an opportunity to help people. And you're like, well, I should focus more on helping this demographic of people. Now, I worry that AI will not see those nuances as you would. And for someone who works in the consumer direct space and the type of loans that you guys work with, I think AI is going to be very, very critical. But also, I think also the decision making of that AI needs a lot more oversight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's scary how fast it's coming to, and how capable it is, and who knows where it goes. But I don't know. I'd be lying to you if I said I've got it all figured out. I can't predict the future, but I do think for the foreseeable future, people do they like working with people, and if it's a good experience and people treat them well and as maybe as trustworthy as the machine can be. It's cold, it's impersonable. When you got a conflict, you're going to want to elevate it, or even if you just disagree and want a second opinion. So I don't. Now, are there going to be lenders? And I've heard some, come out and say like, "Hey, we're going to automate this or this person or this role or this loan officer." Sure, but I really see. I think if I had to put my chips on the table now, that your most successful companies, not just from a bottom line standpoint, but culturally, like the whole employee culture, team culture / customer culture experience, those companies are going to be the ones that I think have this hybrid approach where they lean in on the tech and they try to lean in really hard to improve the customer experience and the employee experience, and to be able to grow their profitability by just doing a lot more and shrinking turn times and all the things, but not trying to just look at a P&L and go, how do I maximize every penny? Because if you do that, you can, even today, you can start to look at, there's not many things you can't potentially automate, So I think people are, companies are just going to have to figure out in our industry and others what's important to me. And I think it's going to, sadly, it usually comes down to a handful of people in any company. So, for our people, I don't know. I've never been in this just for the money. I want to be successful. But I've got my mom, my brother, my wife, good friends of mine that I've got in the business. I enjoy the journey. Like, I enjoy coming in and building things and working with people and hiring people from outside the industry or even inside and bringing them into our system and watching them thrive. Like, that's more fulfilling to me than just, I could up our profit margins by 10% or 20%, so it's going to come to each his own. But I think that's certainly the direction we're going to go, and I think others are already doing that too. And but it's going to be a different looking world over the next several years and in the future than what it is today. It's pretty crazy what's possible.
You hit the nail on the head when you said it's all about the customer experience. And I think you don't consider yourself as sort of like selling money, like most people selling some sort of loans think they're selling money, but I think you really think you're selling the customer experience, because at the end of the day, you were telling me that even if someone doesn't end up doing the loans with you, they leave with a lot more knowledge than they came with when they first met you, and much better experience.
I think so. Especially in consumer direct, it can be a cold, transactional, impersonal experience. We have to guard against this. I have to constantly, because you're not face to face. You don't see your customer as often. So you've got to. I think you've got to humanize this thing, and I think understand that these are people on the other end of the line. If you treat them right, and you've got a lot of leads and a lot of files and a lot of big pipeline and all these things, but go fast when you need to go fast, but slow down when you need to slow down. And it's even for us, and for our people, I've been guilty of it as an LO, recognizing that when you're just trying to do too much and you're not really taking good care and listening, and if that pitch and that call takes an hour to do it the right way, take the hour. I think that's an opportunity for consumer direct. But I will say credit to our team from all of my years and from what I see in consumer direct. I would put this team's ability to nurture the right way up against anybody. Like, it's really cool. Like, I have LOs come in that if you read our online reviews, they're pretty awesome. We get some bad one here and there, but not perfect. But overall, there's 4,000 plus 5-star reviews floating around out there just about our small team. And these are people that are, we're not just saving them a couple bucks. It's a life-changing kind of outcome. And it's really cool when you start to see an army full of people get excited about that as much as they are about the paycheck. And I think that's, the older I get. When I was young, it was about, how much money can I make? But the longer I've been in this business, the last few decades, like I gotta have all three. I need to be financially successful, but I need to bring other people on that ride with me. And then I've got to create a system where the customer experience and the outcome we're giving them is awesome. And I think everybody maybe weights those three things differently, but I think that's how you've got to find what's important to you and how you balance that. And then ultimately that guides a lot of your, leadership decisions.
Yeah. How do you recruit such a mission-driven team?
It's a great question, actually, because we started, we're about 9.5, a little over 9 years in with Top Flight. And then just in May of this year, we rebranded and pulled away in terms of the whole branding and with Haven Home Equity. But for the first 8.5 years, we didn't recruit. It was honestly more focused on just building the machine, getting it right, trying to create the optimal experience. Some might even say a little bit of a mistake. Arguably one of the most important things is to find the right talent, but we just got lucky. Honestly, we had a great core foundation of people. So word of mouth and people hearing about it kind of drew over time a lot of the right talent. And then honestly, like the caliber of our staff, and nothing against past employees, but I think if you're focused on building an A player team like we are, you attract A players. And I think you got to figure out, we've definitely stubbed our toes and we've went against probably some principles in the past, but keeping that bar high. I give this analogy. I grew up playing sports, and wrestling was a big sport of my family's. And I had my high school team, which I loved the sport, loved wrestling. But when I went to the select team or Team Missouri or one of these groups where I was in a room full of just studs, it just naturally leveled you up. And that's what we want. That's really what we're trying to create here, is not all about numbers, but driven, hungry, motivated, high energy people. It's contagious. And so we're really intentional about trying to find those folks. And I think we have a recruiting team now internally that's just started this year that's been creating a lot of interest and sending us, honestly, I think we've hired 25 people over the last 3 months, which is a lot for us.
Yeah.
So
that's like a third plus more, a little less than a third of your team. That's insane. 30% growth in just this early year.
And we probably had 200 interviews to get those 25. So we're a little different in that sense, where it's expensive to do what we do to support someone. We put a lot of money into the individual loan officer, especially, and when we meet someone that's really, I think, what we think it might be a good fit for us and for them, we're just super honest, and we take our time, show them everything. The worst thing you can do is, try to lure somebody in, and then they get into your system, and it's not what you promised them or what they expected. So we take the opposite approach. I had one of my managers tell me that he was having an interview the other day, and the guy said, "Feels like you're trying to talk me out of the job." And he said, "Well, if I'm able to talk you out of it, then it's probably not a fit." So, but it's cool, man. I've got great leaders on my team. I've got a great business partner. We've got great people at the top of Top Flight Financial that have supported this journey we've been on since the beginning. And I think it's like anything else. Sounds kind of cliche, but it really is. At the end of the day, it's about the people, and that doesn't just happen. You have to be intentional, and you have to have standards. And if you have those things, you can create that. You can create that type of environment with the right people, and then from there, it starts to attract like-minded. It's reciprocity. So
I definitely agree. A mediocre team, man, it just slows you down a lot more. And I mean, I know your team from the profiles that I've seen, but also the work that you do and the few conversations that we've had. And when I told you initially, I think you've built one of the most sort of like SEAL Team 6, Swiss Army knife teams, because when I first talked to you, I thought you were like a team of thousands of people. But when I heard, like, and the space that you're playing in, you're not thousands of people. Like, your team is very, very efficient. You mentioned the conversation that one of your partners was having, and it feels like they're trying to talk them out of a job. There's this interview with Brian Chesky, the CEO of Airbnb, and I think one of his interview questions at the end of the interview is he asks the candidate, or he tells them a list of reasons why they should not work at Airbnb. And he's like, you're going to work long hours, but you're going to be very accomplished at the end. And there was this one ad, and I wonder if I can share something, but there's this one ad for an expedition, ad for, I think it was for the Antarctic. All right, so this ad, it's men wanted for hazardous journey, low wages, bitter cold, long hours of complete darkness, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in event of success.
I love it.
This is an ad for
our loan officer ad.
Yeah. Honor and recognition in event of success. Customer satisfaction and 5-star reviews. But this is just an example of something that you guys are doing, and I appreciate you coming on. Todd, how can our audience find you?
You can look me up on LinkedIn, probably the easiest way, and shoot me a DM if you're somebody I've made. It's been cool. I've been in this game for a very long time, but kind of been in my little bubble here most of it, and really haven't gotten intentional until the last couple of years about just trying to get to more conferences and meet more people. And there's so many just up and coming, just rock stars in this industry that I've gotten a chance to meet. So I enjoy that. I'm at that stage in life. I got 3 little daughters, and the business is obviously a huge part of my life. But I think just meeting people in this industry that have a lot of ambition and are curious, and and folks that I've kind of hear our story as terms of the type of culture we're trying to build and maintain, and then the system that we're building and super passionate about putting in place so our people can have success, and the type of customer we help. I think that combination, it's starting to generate a big buzz, especially amongst loan officers, even seasoned, or folks outside that understand the hustle and have that work ethic and grind, and that doesn't scare them. Then I think I love talking to those folks, even if it's not a fit today or ever. It's cool to kind of get to know more people in the industry. So yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can shoot me a DM, and Google Haven Home Equity on all the social sites, and new website coming soon. So rebrand is over. I'm feeling good about that.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on. It's always good to talk to you, and love following you and seeing all the cool stuff you guys are building. It's awesome.
Amazing. Thanks for coming on, Todd.
You got it, Michael. Thanks, buddy.